So now that I've given you the tools and introduced you to what you're going to be doing with those tools in this course, I want to give you a few clues on how to do well in this course. Everything involves understanding the method that's behind what's going to seem like a lot of madness at first. This madness will come through what seems to you like a problem I have called multiple personality disorder. Why? Well, because my teaching style is this. When I'm teaching Aristotle, I try as much to believe that Aristotle is true and convince you that Aristotle is true through his arguments and reasoning as I possibly can. But then all of a sudden, when we go to Boethius, I then suddenly disagree with Aristotle in many key areas and become a convinced follower of Boethius. And as Boethius, try to convince you of his philosophy. And then I jump and become an atheist, Schopenhauer, and do that with Schopenhauer and Nietzsche and Lewis. So what you're going to see is that at each point in the course, the way I teach that particular philosopher, I assume they're true and try to the best of my cognitive and rational and articulate ability to convince you of the same. Now, why do I do that? I do this because philosophy is not Sunday school. Philosophy is not CCD. It is not, here's this truth and I'm going to tell you what it is, and then you remember it, learn it, and spit it back to me on an exam. That's what is called brainwashing. The method of philosophy is following the evidence where the evidence leads. But how can you follow the evidence if you don't know it very well? How can you follow the argument if the best version of it hasn't been given to you? If I tilt things so that the people I agree with, I give you the better arguments, and the ones I don't agree with, I give you weakened versions of those arguments, then I am no longer teaching you philosophy. I am brainwashing you, and I should be fired. And so by the end of this course, if I'm doing my job right, you will think I'm crazy, first of all, and second, you will have no idea what I believe. Don't think that because I put Lewis at the end of the course, that therefore I am a devoted follower of Lewis. That is not true at all. Let me dispel that myth right away. But don't think, therefore, I disagree with him either. By the end of this course, if I'm doing my job right, you won't know who I agree with, and that's the way things should be, because otherwise you are not getting the best of all the sides of the debate. You are not getting a total presentation of the evidence for this inquiry as we know it, and thus I would be doing you a disservice. So therefore, always realize when you forget this, that when I'm teaching the philosopher, I am that philosopher. Second thing, that shows you what you should what I should be doing for you. If I'm teaching you how to think, thinking is very abstract. It's not visual. Emotion is visual. Emotion is experience. And great philosophy takes someone from being a visual and an emotional learner, something that's exciting and high tech, and teaches them how to reason and think in a vacuum, in a sterile and boring environment. Thus, you're not going to get a lot of flashiness in this course, I'm sorry. You're going to get a lot of low-tech writing on the board, and you yourself are going to have to pay attention to those details, listen to the explanations, and go from the visual and the concrete to the more abstract and universal. Only when you grasp what is universal behind each particular can you think outside the box. And all improvements are when we grasp what's essential and apply it to a new situation. And so part of the method of this course is to wean you of that high-tech desire for a flashy, quick soundbite. So what does that mean? Focus on the why over the what. Focus on the why over the what when you're hearing and listening and reading these people. Because the method of philosophy is following the evidence. Conclusions are free. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. Proof is priceless. But proof is boring, isn't it? And here's why. Because it's details, it's length, it is a intense progression of ideas following one upon the other. And unless you concentrate on those details, which can be extremely boring, and constantly remind yourself that these details are important, then you will lose the train of thought and only remember opinions. But our goal is to take opinion and bring it to knowledge, and that requires demonstration and proof. And so therefore, just like we say that the devil is in the details, unfortunately, the demonstration is in the details too. So focus on the why over the what. In all of the ways I test you and evaluate your success in this course, it will be on not what does Aristotle believe, but how did he argue for it? Not on what Nietzsche believed, but why should we believe it? What is the evidence he presented? I will always be asking you to remember the evidence and follow it and demonstrate you understood it. But this is an intro course. I will never demand of you to come up with something new. This course is to help you understand. Once you have that foundation and you go on, then you're entitled to form your own informed opinions. But first you need the forms. And then finally, this requires you to be a skeptic. Okay? What is a skeptic? Someone who's skeptical is hard to convince, right? That's what you need to do. You must be always like the people from Missouri, the show me state. When Aristotle is telling you that life itself is happiness and that you don't know whether you're happy until the end of life because it's like a race, then you should say, well, why should I believe that? Show me. When Nietzsche tells you that the master morality is better than the slave morality and that Judeo-Christian ethics is a slave morality, you shouldn't believe him until he convinces you. And thus, philosophy is dialogue. And so, we have a lot of discussion in this course. You need to take advantage of that. When you don't understand something, ask. When you don't agree, push back. Tell why. Practice your skill of demonstrating and proving your point of view. What's the evidence for your view? But also, do not be satisfied until you at least understand the view of the other. Why they believe that. Why do we read Nietzsche? Why do we agree that he's presented some pretty convincing arguments for his view? Until you understand the arguments, you cannot argue against him. And so, thus, the two basic things in my course. My method, multiple personalities. Therefore, your method, focus on the abstract. Learn to be a more abstract thinker. Focus on the why and over the what. Pay attention to the details of the demonstration and don't just accept or swallow these as facts. What are facts are that reason works, but reason never just simply accepts. Reason is skeptical and says, I won't believe it until you convince me, until you presented convincing evidence. And when it's not convincing, I'm going to poke a hole in it. That is philosophy. And that is why by the end of it, even if you don't draw any firm conclusions, you will be an independent thinker rather than a mere product of your society.